All right, here we go. My father doesn't eat anything. He puts a piece of pie on a round white plate and then holds it in his hands, juice seeping out onto the china without him noticing. A little drop of it falls onto the floor when he stands up to say goodbye to grandfather's guests after the viewing of the microcard. Thank you for coming, Papa says, and my mother bends down behind him to dab up the drop with her napkin. Someone else will move in after grandfather leaves, and they won't want to see the signs of another person's banquet. But that's not why my mother did it, I realize. She wanted to spare my father any worry, any tiny bit at all. She takes the plate from my father as the door shuts behind the last guest. Family time now, she says, and my grandfather nods. Thank goodness, he says. I have things to say to each of you. So far, except for that one moment when he talked about what might come next, grandfather's been behaving as usual. I've heard that some of the elderly have surprised everyone at the end by choosing not to die with dignity. They cry and get upset and go crazy. All it does is make their families sad. There's nothing they can do about it. It's the way things are. By some unspoken agreement, my mother and Bram and I go into the kitchen to let my father speak with grandfather first. Bram, drowsy and stuffed with food, puts his head down on the table and falls asleep, snoring gently. My mother smooths his curly brown hair with her hand, and I imagine that Bram dreams more of desserts, a plate heaped with them. My eyes feel heavy too, but I don't want to miss any part of grandfather's last day. After my father, Bram has a turn, and then my mother goes in to speak with grandfather. The gift she has for him is a leaf from his favorite tree at the Arboretum. She picked it yesterday, so the edges have curled and become brown, but there is still a green in the middle. She told me, while we waited and Bram slept, that grandfather had asked if he could have his final celebration at the Arboretum, out in the blue sky air. Of course, his request was denied. My turn at last. As I go into the room, I notice that the windows are open. It is not a cool afternoon, and the breeze feels urgent and hot as it blows through the apartment. Soon, though, it will be night, and things will be cooler. I wanted to feel the air moving, grandfather says to me as I sit in the chair next to his bed. I hand him the gift. He thanks me and reads through it. These are lovely words, grandfather says. Fine sentiments. I should feel pleased, but I can tell there's something more coming. But none of these words are your own, Kasha, grandfather says gently. Tears sting my eyes, and I look down at my hands. My hands that, like almost everyone else in our society, cannot write, that merely know how to use the words of others, words that have disappointed my grandfather. I wish I had brought a rock like Bram, or nothing at all. Even coming here empty-handed would have been better than disappointing grandfather. What did we just learn about their society? What can't she do? They can't write.
That one. Bad.
Mm-hmm. You have words of your own, Kasha, grandfather says to me. I have heard some of them, and they're beautiful. And you have already given me a gift by visiting so often. I still love this letter because it's from you. I don't want to hurt your feelings. I want you to trust your own words. Do you understand? I look up and meet his eyes and nod because I know that's what he'll want me to do, and I can give that gift to him even if my letter is a failure. And then I think of something else. Since that day on the air train, I've kept the cottonwood seed in the pocket of my plainclothes. I pull it out now and give it to him. Ah, he says, lifting it up to look at it more closely. Thank you, my dear. Look, it's trailing clouds of glory. Now I wonder if grandfather is starting to slip away already. I don't know what he means. I glance at the door, wondering if I should go get one of my parents. I'm an old hypocrite, too, he says, his eyes mischievous again. I told you to use your own words, and now I'm going to ask you for someone else's. Let me see your compact. Surprised, I hold it out to him. He takes it and taps it sharply against his palm, twists something. The base of the compact opens up, and I gasp in shock as a paper falls out. I can see right away that it's old, heavy and thick and creamy, not slick and white like the curls of paper that come out of the ports of the scribes. Grandfather unfolds the paper carefully, gently. I try not to look too closely in case he doesn't want me to see, but with a glance, I can tell that the words are old too. The type is not one in use anymore. The letters are small and black and cramped together. His fingers tremble. Whether it's from the end of his life drawing close or because of what he holds in his hand, I do not know. I want to help him, but I can tell that this is something he must do for himself. It doesn't take long for him to read the paper, and when he's finished, he closes his eyes. An emotion crosses his face that I cannot read, something deep. Then he opens his bright, beautiful eyes and looks straight at me while he folds the paper back up. Kasha, this is for you. It's even more precious than the compact. But it's so... I stop before I can say the word dangerous. There's no time. I hear my father and mother and brother speaking in the hall. Grandfather looks at me with love in his eyes and holds the paper out to me. A challenge, an offering, a gift. After a moment, I reach for it. My fingers close around the paper and he lets go. He gives me back the compact, too. The paper fits neatly inside. As I snap the artifact shut, Grandfather leans toward me. Kasha, he whispers, I'm giving you something you won't understand. Yet. But I think you will someday. You more than the rest. And remember, it's all right to wonder. When did he talk to her about wondering? It's from yesterday.
When she talked to him about the other face.
Yeah, about Kai's face showing up, right? She says, what do you think grandmother would say? And he says, I think she would ask if you wondered. And now he's telling her it's okay to wonder. He holds on for a long time. It is an hour before midnight in a deep blue night when Grandfather looks at us and says the best words of all with which to end a life. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. We all say it back to him. Each of us means it, and he smiles. He leans back on his pillows and closes his eyes. Everything inside him has worked perfectly. He has lived a good life. It ends as it is supposed to end, at exactly the right time. I'm holding his hand when he dies.